Welcome, my friends. This is Mike Williams. Will Peter Jackson's Get Back documentary rewrite and revise Beatle history? Film and video researcher Paul Jansen joins me to break down and analyze Peter's recent Get Back trailer to see if there are any clues embedded in the promo. And so without further ado, here's the interview with Paul, and thanks for listening. Hey friends, we have a great show as promised. Paul, who is a film and video researcher, has joined me for this episode, and we're going to go through Peter Jackson's most recent trailer of his Get Back documentary, which is going to premiere later this month on November 25th, 26th, and 27th. 3 days. And this is the film where we supposedly have 55, 56, or 57 hours of unseen footage. So Paul, being a video and film buff, is going to give his analysis. We're going to step through the trailer, and I have it at 1/3 speed, Paul, so we can take it nice and slow.
Yes.
And what we're going to do, and mostly Paul, we're going to comment on what's taking place or what Paul believes is taking place so he can share his insights as to what Peter is doing with the film. So did you want to add anything, Paul?
Just that I'm Dutch. English is not my native speech, but I hope I can manage. And if some errors may occur, then please forgive me. It's not my.
You'll do fine.
It's not my daily language. So anyway. Okay.
All right. So we're going to get started. So the first screen we have
scene.
up, Paul. Yeah. So explain to us about the text. You talked about this with me about a week ago or so. What is Peter doing with the way the font is being presented?
It's a font typically of newspaper, or also as it is being used in Hollywood scripts, movie scripts. But it's a typical font that sort of announces us this is a documentary. If they would have used a different happy font, then it doesn't work. They use this typically font, and also by using text cards, they sort of indicate to us this is a documentary, and we're using text cards and not a voiceover. So the mindset for the viewers is sort of preset with knowing that what now follows is the truth because we're watching a documentary. And now the first shot is the deconstruction of the scene in the Twickenham studios. So we see the studio in its entirety, the four lads with their instruments. We see boom microphones, we see speakers, we see some other stuff in the background. We see some guy walking through the frame. So the set is pretty much as we would expect for an opening scene for a documentary.
Let me ask you, Paul, we know that the original film was shot in 16 millimeters. So this type of shot, the clarity, the colors are just popping out. Is this possible with the original 16 millimeter film?
I think so, yes. They would have known what to shoot. I think not everything is sort of off the cuff. They, especially these background colors, it's a projecting screen, and they sort of project. I think with rear projection, they project colored lights to it, and the effect is that the foreground can be lit with separate lights, so the guys are not green or yellow or red. It's just a background, but this is a created shot.
This is a created shot, so you don't think that this was part of the original footage?
Yes, well, no, it could be a part of the original footage, but this is as a shot. It is constructed. Someone thought of using a purple, green, and red colors in the background.
Oh, you're saying the way they set it up?
Yeah, the way they set it up.
Okay,
and,
gotcha.
Like you say about the clarity of the shot, that indeed can be done with a 60 millimeter film.
Okay, so I'm going to hit the play button. And like I said, folks, this is going at 1/3 speed so that we don't miss anything. So
see guys busy walking around in the shot. It's sort of indicating the documentary style. Everybody's moving, cameras zooming in. Or better yet, the camera is dollying in.
Okay, so we have that dolly effect, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and then it says this resulted in over 57 hours of the most intimate footage ever shot of the band. And as I mentioned in a video I did recently, Paul, that number is 55, 56, 57, depending upon the promo or the press release that's being put out. But now we have 57 hours, and of course I mentioned this in my previous video, folks. 5 plus 7 is 12, 1 plus 2 equals 3, and this goes back to Billy's McCartney 3 album. But in any case, so we have the same font.
Yes.
Right, and I'll move forward.
And now we open with the first shot of John playing Don't Let Me Down. Very emotionally singing, but look, he's wearing a green shirt. And now we cut to him wearing a blue and yellow striped shirt.
All right, let me go back for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right. So here, yes, he has a
green shirt.
A green shirt. You can see off his right shoulder would be on your left watching. And then as we go forward,
they cut to a different scene from a different session.
Right. Now, some of the audience might be thinking, okay, so why is that a problem? They just used clips from different days. So how would you answer that question?
Yes. I think this is, we see this throughout the whole promo. There are some examples later on. What they also do is they use a continuous sound, in this case, the song Don't Let Me Down, but they added different images to it. And they sort of give the suggestion that it's all in one session, but we can clearly see that it's not. So you could argue, why is that? Why do they use different scenes from different days of filming? It sort of indicates to me, at least, that not everything what we see is like it happened, or maybe to push it further, they added it in a way that gives a narrative that maybe didn't happen.
Okay, so what you're saying is it's not contiguous, so they actually copy and pasted, to use layman's terms, to actually piece together a storyline or visual, at least for this trailer. Now,
at least for this trailer,
right.
We cannot say how the end result will look, but for this trailer, they sort of cut it in this way. And if people watch the trailer at normal speed with sound, they sort of see that's a little movie in itself. They preset the text with 3 weeks of the guys recording in the studio to record an album and to prepare for a live show. And halfway through, we get all the disturbances of George and of some other things. So they have to edit it to tell a story within the promo. And by using different images, maybe they could get that story for the promo to work, to function. Maybe later on in the final documentary, they use complete different editing. That's possible, but at least for the promo, this is my observation. They manipulate images to create a storyline.
Okay, and when you talked about disturbances, were you referring to when George walked out of the sessions between January 10th and January 15th?
Exactly. And like you probably will illustrate later on how many days he left and when he returned. It's in between sessions, or maybe at least it created a very difficult time for the guys.
Right. Okay. It definitely would have impacted the schedule, right? And we'll get to the calendar in a moment.
Yes.
Because it pops up in the trailer. So let's move on here, and just let me know when you want me to stop.
This shot of Billy. This is something to illustrate what you said in your earlier analysis of the way the microphones are used in the studio. And what we see here is two different types of microphones. One on the horizontal stand, and the one on the lower stand, which is a typical classical type of microphone. I'm not sure about which type. And what you said is that these microphones pick up, if they are sensitive, they pick up any sound in the surrounding. So when we see the guy in the rear, that's probably Michael Lindsay Hawk, who's famous, at least in this promo, for smoking a cigar. You could argue, why is he in the studio during a recording? His sound of maybe lighting up a cigar or walking about is picked up on in the microphones. So in the recordings, they get disturbed with noise, with unwanted sounds.
Right, because what I had said was, if this is rehearsal, it's fine.
That's fine for a rehearsal. Okay.
Rehearsal, right. But if they're trying to depict a scene or a scenario where they're actually laying down recorded tracks, this does not work because these microphones will pick up everything. The other thing I want to point out, Michael Lindsay Hogg, you could see the cigar right here, right above Billy's head. But look at his hand. It's in his pocket, the hidden hand of Freemasonry. Okay, so we'll move on. We've got this scene here.
Yeah, this is interesting for a couple of reasons. This is the first scene where we see Ringo playing behind these sound barriers for his drum sound not to be predominant in the recordings of the guys. But later on, in some other shots, we clearly see that he's not playing behind sound barriers. So there's a discrepancy between the use of sound barriers for drums, which we all know are very dominant in the sound.
Yeah, and if we look at this image as well, we have a microphone here to the upper right. We have a microphone here in front of John. Billy, of course, has a microphone which we can't see. George's microphone is right here. We have a microphone here, and both George and John are playing electric guitars, which means they're playing through amplifiers. And even though Ringo is behind the baffling here, the problem is that his cymbal is actually right even with, maybe a little above it. So anytime he hits that cymbal, it's going to crash right through.
Yeah.
And all these microphones are going to pick up the cymbal crash. And the truth of the matter is, because he's so close to where they are anyway, it doesn't matter that this divider or baffling is here. It's just going to ring through. So the point again being that for rehearsal purposes, not a problem. But if we're to believe, or we're trying to be told to believe, that this is some kind of recording session, that's not the case. And the other thing, Paul, you and I called out when we spoke last week is, look at the piano and all the coats and the mess.
Yeah. And now it's only coats, and you could argue coats won't affect the sound of a piano. But later on, we will see that the guys are having lunch at the piano, and what we know about Bludner is one of the major piano manufacturing companies. If I'm correct, this would equate to a nowadays instrument of more than $100,000. So to put your clothes or lunch or drinks on top of the top lid of the piano wouldn't make sense, to say the least, and would be very unwanted.
Okay, let me move on here. Okay, so we have this 8-track reel here.
Yeah. What we said, what I talked to you about earlier, is that we don't know if these are true shots. These could have been made last week. We don't know, but they use them as an insert to link one scene to a next scene. So if there's not a natural transition between two scenes, you can use an insert to make that transition happen, to make the audience sort of give a point of rest for your attention to easily move into the next scene. That's use of inserts.
And the other thing I've noticed, Paul, is when I watched the original film going back to 1970, these types of shots where it's zooming in, close-ups and sweeps and all of that, you don't see that in the original film.
Mm.
So to me, this is something that obviously that Peter has created for effect.
Yeah, like we said, we cannot say for sure, but at least in the promo it works. It works for the effect of connecting two scenes together. But since this is a shot that has no reference to any time frame, they could have been made last week or last month or last year when they edited the whole promo. So they and further in the promo we see some other scenes with Billy Preston, which are typically used to move the story forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll click forward.
Yeah. Then we see. Okay, in the sound of this shot, we see this is Ringo playing in the Twickenham studio, and the shot previous to this was in the Apple studio. But the soundtrack again is still playing "Don't Let Me Down." So they now we can for sure say that they used several scenes to create one. Several shots to create one scene. And again, this is what he very strong, powerfully uses to create the story.
One of the things I wanted to point out, Paul, is in the first trailer they play "Get Back," and of course the what's being implied is that is the recording or one of the lost recordings or enhanced recordings that Peter Jackson has brought back to life based upon the unseen footage. But the thing is, when I uploaded that to YouTube, YouTube identified the song as "Get Back" from the Beatles' Let It Be Naked album, which was the Let It Be album that Billy redid going back a number of years ago because he didn't like the whole Phil Spector production. So the point I'm trying to make, folks, is that the first trailer was, I think, a little misleading because, we're thinking, oh, okay, well, this is a new version of the song. It's been remixed, remastered, or whatever. And only to find out, at least I found out, that no, that version of Get Back has existed for several years, going back to when Let It Be Naked was released. So, what I'm saying is these songs that we're hearing in the trailer, and I will put the link down below so you can listen to the whole thing. We don't want to have the sound here because otherwise it would interfere with what we're trying to say.
Right.
Is that, I don't know, it's not new stuff, is what I'm saying. Yes. It certainly appears like it's been released before, and it's not new and unheard. Okay, well, I guess we'll move forward here.
Yes.
Okay, so then we have this part of the video which says the footage has been locked in a vault for over half a century unseen. And then you want me to move forward, and John does a little something, right?
Yes, John makes a gesture.
We're at 1/3 speed, folks, so. Okay, so he's kind of, his hand is going forward.
He's emphasizing a thing, a moment, something special, and then we see the text card "Until Now."
Okay.
This is very powerful editing. Peter Jackson connects John's moving to this text "Until Now," so it sort of anchors in our brain a visual and a text, and that's very interesting how that works.
Want me to move forward?
Yes, please.
Okay.
This is still in the Twickenham studio. What I noticed here is that in all the Twickenham sessions, we see Ringo playing without the sound baffling. And also what I thought strange is, why is he on a platform? Why isn't he on the same level as the other guys? But please stop here. This is interesting. But it does make sense to have a typed out lyrics and a handwritten lyric from two different songs on one sheet. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so I don't know whether Peter's putting, the two together for some kind of an effect, but what I pointed out was the typed text it's not very clear. It's a bit blurry.
Yes.
Whereas the handwritten text is
sharp. All over the board. Yes.
And the other thing too, folks, is that Get Back was written by Billy, and if he's supposed to be Paul McCartney, he's left-handed. And what we see here is handwriting that is written by somebody who is right-handed.
I think so too. Yes.
Yeah, because if it was a left-handed person writing this, then you would have the left-handed slant
Yeah.
on the letters, and we don't see that. What we have is
Yeah.
right-handed. And the other thing, Paul, I wanted to ask you about is, again, if I go back to the 1970 film, there were never close-ups like this. And so this seems to me to be another piece of footage that was created and
Yeah.
inserted into the trailer in order
Yeah.
to create some kind of an effect.
Like like in the shot of the recording reels, the tape recorder, we cannot we don't have any other reference from this what we see here than only the typed text and the written text. So this could be a shot that, indeed, like you say, that Peter Jackson has inserted recently, just to create a narrative. We cannot visually connect it to any other thing. If there's maybe a shot that follows up, we see written text that is picked up by a hand and the sheet of paper is lifted off. But here we see just a standalone shot of a piece of paper with written and a typed text. So it could indeed be a made after effect.
The official story tells us that the songs were works in progress, which means that
Yes.
they came into the studio without complete songs. And so it would seem weird that Billy finishes The Long and Winding Road and then he hands it off to somebody and says, "Hey, go type this up."
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it could have
Exactly.
been done, right? But
Sure, but the argument against it would be that that takes time. You have to wait for the type text to get back to the studios to hand out to the guys to play the song.
right.
While if you would say to the guys, well, this is the lyrics. We're going to play it from my handwritten lyrics. It saves time, and you could. I don't know. It doesn't. It seems strange to have it typed out.
Okay, so let's take a look here.
Then we get a shot. I think of. Yeah, this is interesting. You pointed out earlier in your first analysis that this image seems strange because John is looking sort of with a slant eye, and
Yeah,
what I
his
noticed,
right eye is kind of drifting.
yeah, sort of a drifting eye. The other thing that you noticed is that the microphone is in focus, and John and Billy are out of focus. Technically, that would be indeed like it is because the camera has focused on the mic and not on John. It could, what you said in your earlier analysis, that the microphone could have been a added on effect in a different image layer. They can easily edit this into this shot. But what's interesting is that when we play it, that John is giving what I think to Billy the side eye, sort of a disapproving side eye.
As we move forward. Yeah. So just before we leave this particular shot here, folks, what I had mentioned, as Paul just stated, is that we don't really have super clarity here with John. Right? We see his eye is drifting to the right here, but look at the microphone. I mean, it's very, very clear. You know, so, and yes, I don't know. It just seems to me like this was inserted into the footage.
Frame.
Yeah.
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 With a different layer and image. In post editing, they can easily put that in a different image layer, and it doesn't affect the total appearance of the scene. But we as a viewer know, okay, the guys are singing, so we see what's happening.
Yeah, and again, Paul, just so that I talk about this
Mike,
eye a little bit, I had suggested that this was some kind of glitch with the technology as it was trying to rebuild or recreate facial features and stuff like that the artificial intelligence or, whatever technology Peter's using, it didn't quite catch it. Now, somebody wrote me and said that, hey, if somebody is a heroin addict, that one of the symptoms of having that addiction is that you could have a lazy eye. Now, the question I would have with that is that when I watched the original Let It Be film and seeing these trailers, I'm not seeing a John Lennon who appears to be a heroin addict. He seems to be very active, very playful, so I don't know. Again, I take the whole story about Lennon being addicted to heroin, him and Yoko. I'm not sold on that. I'm really not.
No.
And the reason why is because, as I've mentioned in a previous video, I know somebody who is addicted to heroin, and the only thing that that person thinks about is their next fix.
Yeah.
All they're looking for is heroin. And, I don't know. It just doesn't seem to fit with me based upon my own personal experience of knowing somebody who is an addict and then watching John in both the original film and in these trailers. So I guess I'll move forward. And you said that going forward, Billy kind of gives John a side eye.
Now John gives Billy the side eye here.
Yeah, we can see John's eyes shift over to him.
Yeah, so it's a very powerful, how do you say it, confrontation between the two. It's not even a spoken dialogue, but the eyes says it all.
It is kind of an interesting look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much.
Okay, so let's move on here. Now this amazes me how clear this is right here.
Yeah. Well, what we see in the background is this purple color, referencing back to the opening scene where we saw these three colors: purple, red, and green. So this is in the Twickenham studio, and the lighting in the Twickenham studios is different. The lights are more from a lower angle, directly to the faces of the guys, whereas in the Apple studios the lights have been pointed to the ceiling, and we get reflected and indirect light. So the indirect light is more softer, and here we have the direct light, and it's more harsh. So we have a clearer image of the faces, but also it gives harder shadows. But as a result, it looks more clear. That's a fact. And then we get the text card of the 3 weeks recording time. You will see, by the way, the boom microphone that's only being used for the recording of the cameras. The film cameras have a separate audio recording, and they have to use a boom microphone because they don't get a feed from the mixing desk. They have their own standalone recording for the film cameras.
Okay.
And here we now see the text card for the let's say the main premise of the whole story, at least for the promo, but I guess also for the whole series of 3 episodes. This 3 weeks recording and writing time.
Yeah, so it's another one of these crazy time frames in which the Beatles are going to pull off a miracle. So they have less than 3 weeks. They actually have about 2.5 weeks.
Exactly.
To write and record a new album. At least at Rubber Soul, they said 30 days. And here they're saying less than 3 weeks. So
yep. The 30 days, that I believe was 30 work days, if I'm correct.
With Rubber Soul, no, it was October 11th to November 11th. So it was.
Okay.
It included weekends.
Okay, including weekends. So here 3 weeks is including weekends. But
yes.
As we see later on we see a shot of the calendar, and we see the exact timeline appear. Now we get some.
Okay, so we have this scene here.
This is again Twickenham studio, and what you see now is that the lighting is completely changed. They have just switched off the background colors, or maybe this is a different setting. I'm not sure, but at least it's still Ringo on the platform, and the guys sitting around, and Yoko is reading a shopping list or something. Now we see George writing, and in the next shot following this, we cut to a sheet of paper with lyrics. Here we see the lyrics of "I've Got a Feeling," and this is being picked up by a hand and lifted out of the frame.
Right. So the person watching this trailer would think that it was George.
It was George who wrote "I've Got a Feeling,"
I've
but
got
we
a
know
feeling.
at least as far as the credits go, that it's a song by John and Paul or
Okay.
Billy. Okay, this shot here, it could have been a real shot, but also, and like you said before, these shots were not included in the original documentary. So in imagery, what we see here is, hey, coffee has been served. Okay, guys, let's have a break. And in the shot, Billy Preston is just relaxing on the piano. And I'm not sure if this is a real shot. They could have easily mixed two layers into one shot. And if the shot of Billy Preston is a real shot, which we must assume since he is periodically correct in his dress and in his appearance, the shot of the 4 coffee cups in front of the Thunder Roads is maybe an afterwards made shot. We cannot know, but it could be.
Yeah, it's another one of these shots that you don't see in the original film. And the reason why I bring that up, folks, is that why would the filming technique be different? Right? So if these are outtakes, if this is footage that was shot during the original film back in 1969, then why were these types of shots not incorporated in the original film? That's my question. You know, why were they only in the footage that was cut or the outtakes? I don't know. To me, it just seems very, very strange.
But here it adds, let's say, for as an image, it adds to the overall atmosphere of the guys having a good time recording.
Being
There is
relaxed.
relaxed. There's time enough to have a coffee, to hang on the piano, just take it easy. Well, in the back of our minds, we know that they are stressed out because they only have 3 weeks for a completely new set of songs and a recording. So the imagery sort of makes an effort to show us, the viewer, the relaxed atmosphere.
Right. So it's a scene that really conflicts with the official story
Yeah,
until Peter started showing us his version of the story, or Billy's version of the story, right? We know that the Let It Be sessions were very tense. They were stressful.
yeah,
And the lads weren't getting along too well.
yeah.
And like
And
you
this,
said, Paul, this scene is showing us, oh, it wasn't so bad. Cups of coffee, Billy's just hanging out, you know.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
All right, let's move forward here.
We move forward. We get a scene where George is okay. This is the Mel handing over a guitar to Billy. If I may comment on this type of shots, the promo of, let's say, the preview of Peter Jackson also shows typical shots where in the foreground we see either Billy or John or whoever playing or doing something with their instruments, and in the background we see 2 other guys of the band still playing, singing in the microphone. And here as well we see George and John playing while Billy is handed his guitar by Mal. It's a typical, how do you say it? This could have been done, like I said, in the other shots by adding a different image layer, and it sort of emphasizes the group atmosphere. So everybody is relaxed, making music. Billy is discussing something with Mel about the guitar. George and John are playing. This group feeling, this atmosphere of the group being a tight group, is emphasized by these types of shots.
I'll move forward.
Yeah. If we move forward, we get the famous shot of George asking, "How many songs have we recorded already? Good enough."
Okay,
But
yeah, so maybe I should turn the volume up for that. But here is a
another insert.
Yeah.
So here again, we don't know whether this tape recorder is. What my guess is that it's a tape recorder used by the camera crew. So the film camera have their own recorder for the sound, and what you see here is typically a smaller tape size. What you said earlier, the 8-track size tape are these very wide
Yep.
gauge tapes, but this is a smaller gauge tape. I think it's only for recording the sound of one microphone of the microphone, the boom microphone for the film cameras.
Okay. All right. And so we're coming up on the question that George asks.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just increase the volume a little bit so that folks can hear it.
What we hear George asking, how many have we already recorded good enough? But we don't actually see George speaking these words. And then later, in the next shot, we see John answering to Billy, none. So the dialogue is, how many have we recorded? And John answers, none.
Right.
But the way it is, the way the camera records it and how the guys are facing each other doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and the other thing too, Paul, is it also creates a problem for the narrative, right? Less than 3 weeks for 14 songs, yes. And then George is asking the question, how many are in the hopper? How many are done? And John says, none.
None. Yeah. So here, this is, let's say, a classical plot point in a normal movie script, where the drama gets how do you say it? It moves forward surrounding a plot point. If you play what sound?
How many have we already recorded good enough?
No.
So how many have we recorded good enough? And John Lennon says, none. So let me go back, folks. Play it again.
How many have we already recorded good enough?
No. George, in my view, is standing next to Billy wearing his fur coat. So first he has a jacket on, a jeans jacket, and in the next shot he wears his fur coat. And John is not answering George, he's answering Billy. So the eye lines don't match up. So the imagery and the sound don't match up. And here again, I think it's very powerful editing of something that possibly didn't happen.
All right, so let me play this again.
How many have we already recorded good enough?
No.
So they will film a concert of the new songs for a TV show and a documentary.
None of us has had the idea of what the show's going to be.
This is interesting.
You want me to go back?
Yeah, if you can. I wanted to explain something. Okay, what we see here in the clapperboard is what you already explained. There's this classical 2 and a 1 numerology, what you most often have explained what the meaning of that is. But we see it on the clapperboard, and the clapperboard in this shot disappears by what is called a jump cut. So it seems like a continuing shot, but the jump cut is made in between. So they cut out the moment the clapperboard is being removed, and what we see is a clapperboard, and the next moment we see no clapperboard. You don't see it being taken away from the shot. In my view, but that's my view, it is a kind of a hint, a clue to people in the know. Look, we have edited it. This whole sequence, this whole promo, the whole movie is clever editing. And this is an example, and openly and showing in plain sight, openly telling us, at least people who are able to see it, this is clever editing. So if you play it, Mike.
Yeah, let me just reduce the playback again. So there you go. Yeah.
There you go. It's normally considered a editing mistake if you make these types of edits in your final result. But here it is clearly being shown. So you could argue, or you could ask yourself the question, why is that? Why do they show it like they do? And then, but also they roll away the Beatles drum head. I don't know if there is a meaning behind it, but it's sort of, well, Okay,
Yeah.
you
I'll go
yeah.
back. Yeah.
I don't know if there's any meaning behind it, but the rolling away of the Beatles.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird type of cut. It's
Yeah,
now it's there and then it's not, right?
and then it's not. So it's normally considered a jump cut, and it's an added error. It's not something you would want to have in your final film,
Okay.
unless you want it in your film. So, okay. Anyway, we see here the location scouting on top of the building, and what we see, Billy's making this arm gesture of being something huge. And on the soundtrack, but you don't have to show it. It's quite obvious. The soundtrack says, Billy in voiceover, none of us had the idea of what the show is going to be. And then we see Billy making this gesture. So the show is going to be big. That's also nice editing.
Okay. All right. So then we have this scene here.
Yeah. Michael Lindsay Hawk, who has, what I read about the planning of the rooftop concert, was what I read, it was his idea to have it on top of the Apple building. If that's true, this scene makes sense. He's showing Billy some plans, and if we play it out, we clearly see here in this shot,
right here,
what I think is a section view of a building, a hallway or a doorway, where a man figure, a person, is standing inside this hallway or this building. Sort of as you can sort of get a sense of size of a plan showing Billy how, what I think the concert is going to, how it's going to take place, where it's going to be held, how it will look, what has to be done in preparation, stuff like that. And having this little diagram in the right side, in the bottom right side of this plan, we see it in the yeah, what I'd say, I think a section view of a building with a person standing in it.
The other thing that's interesting about this piece of the footage, Paul, is that it's clearly showing Billy in charge. Because here's Mal, here's Michael, right? And
exactly.
they're covering the plans. They're discussing the plans with him.
Yeah. And what does he do? He stays seated at his piano. And what I thought of this scene is it clearly shows indeed, like you say, the power of Billy. He's the man. He's making remarks of the building plans for the concert. The two guys are standing up, are standing, and Billy is staying seated. So the power position between the three is very clearly shown here.
Right.
Normally, if someone shows you plans and they ask your opinion, you would also stand up to show them respect, getting to the same level of face-to-face. That's the typical, how do you say it, interpersonal behavior.
Right. But in this case, what you're saying is there's a hierarchy in place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Billy is the man. Billy stays seated. I'm not going to be bothered to stand up to your level. I'm just staying right where I am. I'm the man.
Okay. Want me to move forward?
Yes, please. John saying something, I'm not sure quite what. Oh, the mood is getting a bit lower. Ringo leaning over, he thinks it's all right for me. Okay, this shot. This is the side door of the recording room of the Apple studio. Later on, we will see John fooling about in front of this door. The lighting inside, we know this is the basement of the Apple building, so they're walking up the stairs, but the lighting inside the stairwell is enough for us to see clearly Billy, and he's looking over his shoulder as George is closing the door. And like you said before, George is very, I'm not sure, it seems that George is not in focus.
Yeah.
And if George is not in focus, Billy would be even more out of focus. Only the door seems in focus. So this is a very much reworked shot to get sharpness and clarity.
That's a good point, because the doors are in very good focus.
Yeah.
They're clear. Yep.
And George is kind of out of focus. And if George is already, then Billy must be completely out of focus.
Yeah.
We saw Billy just looking over his shoulder.
And then they tell us they haven't played live for an audience in 3 years. So, of course, this goes back to 1966, and this is 1969.
Exactly. So this is also some kind of a setup for the drama that already has been announced in the previous text card for this recording time frame. So this emphasizes the drama. Yeah, this is what we discussed previous, but I'm not sure if it's of any meaning. But what this was a very short.
The flash.
A sort of a flash frame. It only takes less than half a second.
Right. And now remember, folks, this is at 1/3 speed, so this goes by very fast if it's at normal speed.
And we know it's John, but we don't clearly see it. So we could argue why is it in the promo? What purpose does this shot serve? Well, in my view, it's just to disturb the audience, and disturbance is a way of a tool of storytelling.
And then we've got somebody standing back here, and I honestly cannot make out who that is.
Some of the studio crew, the film crew.
Yeah.
Yes, but this is something that we later on can see in several other shots as well. That there's always people standing in the background in the shot. So, but that's maybe it's something that doesn't have any further meaning, but it stands out. Now we see a little montage. This leads up to this is the section what I call the cauliflower section. George is asking everybody about his lyrics, where he doesn't seem to find the right words, and John is jokingly saying, "Well, just use the word cauliflower for any version of the words you don't seem to find." This is this bit. I say what we see also here. Again, the sound barrier. Next to the sound barrier, we see in this shot is the Leslie speaker of the Hammond organ. And in some later shots, I have a nice, interesting comment on that as well.
Okay.
It's not clear in this shot, but we come back to that later. Okay,
well, here's
we see
the piano again too, Paul, right?
Yeah. Already we see here some stuff on the piano, what you could ask yourself, would you like to see wine glasses on top of a $100,000 instrument? I'm not sure. If it were my piano, I wouldn't be so happy about it. But anyway.
Maybe these are the missing reels of the unseen.
These are the missing reels. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. I'll move forward.
And now we get a shot of the calendar. Okay, first this. The calendar obviously is a afterwards made shot. This is not an actual calendar from those days. It has printed text font, live shows. Next, later on, we see printed type of George meeting, and we see printed type of George leaving. So this is purely a insert to move the drama forward. It's not an actual calendar.
Right. So, folks, just to recap, so the Beatles came in to the studio on January 2nd, and this calendar is telling us that they have live shows scheduled for the 19th and the 20th. And of course, that's 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
And the other point we wanted to make here is that George, according to the official narrative, he walked out of the studio on January 10th, and he was gone through the 15th. Because he had that argument with Billy on Monday, January 6th, and then tensions continued to mount. George threw in the towel and said, I'm done with this. So he left at around lunchtime on the 10th, and he was gone through the 15th, and he returns on the 16th. So this makes this schedule even more impossible, because one of your guitar players is gone for a week, and you only have 2.5 weeks. So it's just craziness. And the other thing I wanted to point out, I should have mentioned this in my one video, Paul, and that January 19th, when it's the first day of the live shows, that's January, which is 1, and the 19th. So when you put the numbers together, you have 11/9 or 9/11. So it's another 9/11 reference right there as to when they're going to do the first day of the live shows.
Yeah. But in fact, and that shot we will discuss later, if Billy is beneath the clapperboard, the date on that clapperboard and the date of the live show also have very large meanings.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to point out, folks, the Beatles did the rooftop concert on January 30th. So when we take January, which is 1 plus the 30th, 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 1969, it reduces down to the number 11.
We see some dates will be crossed out to increase the tension and the drama. Okay, now it's if you freeze here, okay. They are having lunch at the piano. It's strange for many reasons. Normally, maybe you do it as well, Mike. I did it also. If you have a certain place where you work, usually you have another place where you have your lunch. Sort of have a little distance from your workplace. So you make a little walk, or you go to a kitchen room or a dining room or a lunch room, whatever. But here they are seated, they're staying seated in the recording room, having lunch there, right on top of the piano. So that's already maybe not like you would expect. But then we have all the stuff on top of the piano: drinks, coffee, cigarette cases, napkins, all kinds of stuff. It seems strange to me.
It looks like they're in a garage. That's what it looks like to me. It does not look like a professional recording environment. Now, of course, someone's going to say, well, that's what it looked like. And I agree, that's what it looked like. But it is very surprising to see this recording environment when you're talking about the greatest band of all time.
Yeah, I mean, later on we see when the discussion with George happens, there's a shot where George arrives in his Mercedes 600. A very expensive car, one of the top line cars next to maybe Bentley or Rolls Royce. The guys had money, so the studio had money, and then they are having lunch inside the recording room. Doesn't seem fitting to the status of the band.
Yeah.
Okay, in the background now we see again this Leslie speaker, and we see a microphone standing on top of the amplifier, a guitar amplifier. This in recording technically. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever to have your microphone on top of an amplifier. So you get vibrations, or even worse, you get circuit interference, whatever. And another thing is that what I researched was that if you make a recording of a Leslie speaker, you at least have 2 microphones to get that typical Leslie speaker sound. So this setup of recording microphones at the Leslie speaker doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
And again, all of these microphones. I mean, take a look at this picture, folks. We got a mic here, we got a mic here, we got a mic there. There's one here, there's one. Ringo here. This is to catch the snare. They got a mic up here. There's a mic going down here. We have more microphones over here. Here's one here. Again, this I guess to get the toms.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's just microphones all over the place. And again, if you're rehearsing, no problem. No problem. But for recording, you couldn't record this way. You could not get a good recording.
Exactly.
With this type of microphone setup. Okay,
And
do you want me to go forward, Paul?
Yeah, but let's please forward.
Okay.
Uh,
And we got John.
okay, we got John goofing, and in the background we see the door, which we talked about earlier, the
Right.
emergency exit.
The door where George was a little out of focus, but the door was in focus.
Exactly. And now
Right
we see
here.
in this shot, we see John clowning about. And what I notice is that the lighting on his face is very, it seems overworked with the restoring what they did. It doesn't seem real. Of course, the shot can be real, but it calls questions in my taste.
Well, also, it goes back to what I was saying before. You know, he was supposed to be a heroin addict, and here we are. And he's very active. And in fact, the trailer before this, he pulls his pants over his kneecaps and he's hopping up and down on the ground. I mean, we don't see it in this recent trailer, but in the one before this, we do. So I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem okay. They've did shot. Okay, now it's getting interesting. We see the shot of Billy standing next to the 10 number.
Yep. The number of completion, new beginnings. And he has a big old smile on his face.
Yes. Just for reference, in the background, we see Ringo's drum kit without the sound baffling. Right. So that's strange because I think this is again in the Apple studio. So why is he in one shot he uses these sound barriers, and in the next shot here he doesn't. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Anyway,
right. We have John and Yoko down here.
Yeah, but the meaning of this shot is kind of what you are expert in.
The meaning of this shot is, first of all, he's dressed in black and white, duality, the number 10, number of completion, new beginnings.
His
That's
pose.
what I think this represents.
His pose is very authoritative.
Yes.
He has a smug smile on his face. He knows exactly what's been shown here. And in the next shot, we get the other one. It's even this one.
This is great.
This is interesting for many reasons. First of all, we have the number 18. That's your territory, Mike. Maybe you can explain a little bit on that.
Well, it's the number 9, so 1 + 8 = 9. And when Billy plays the role of Paul McCartney, he's all about the 9s. When he's himself as William or Billy, he associates himself with the number 6. So we could see him pointing up.
Exactly.
Number 9. Yep.
Now he himself is very much in the let's say an image that is very well known as iconography for the Jesus figure. What we all know. And a few tenths of seconds before this, he is looking up to the sign, and he's almost exactly in this typical iconography type of image of the Jesus figure. You could say, well, it's just it happened like that. That's true, but then we go to the next meaning on the clapperboard. We see here on the clapperboard the text Beatles show.
Let me go back, Paul. You're talking about this one here?
Back, please. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes. Okay. We see here it says Apple Film Limited Beatles show. And I thought, would a camera crew, a filming and a documentary crew, would they use the term show on the clapperboard? Wouldn't they just say Beatles recording, Beatles sessions, Get Back sessions, whatever?
Or just the Beatles.
Or just Beatles. But Beatles show implies something with a very different meaning.
Okay, so you want me to move forward, Paul?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, here we have Billy's got his yellow shirt on. You want me to move past this?
This is a little montage. I'm not sure what. Okay, then this is the scene where Billy off camera is saying it's going to be such a comical thing, like in 50 years' time. and then we see Yoko and John dancing. But Billy's line of "it's going to be such a comical thing like in 50 years time," and it sort of makes a reference to the timeline we are now in. We are now 50 years later.
Right. Right.
So Billy saying that in 1969 is also, I don't know, maybe it doesn't mean anything, but it's. I noticed this.
Yeah, maybe a little predictive. Who knows, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows? But then we've got.
This is still a montage of the.
We got the calendar again.
Of the calendar. So, and now things. How did they say it? The plot thickens.
Yeah, they said they have a meeting with George, and as I mentioned, the narrative in Wikipedia says George was out of there between the 10th and the 15th. They did meet with him, and when they met with him, he decided to come back on the 16th. So,
yeah.
But of course, with George being out of the studio for a week, as I mentioned before, Paul, that makes this whole 19th and 20th, those dates, impossible.
Totally impossible. But another interesting thing is, in the imagery we see, while we know now we know that there is a meeting with George. So George is having an argument. He's threatening to leave, and in fact he does leave. And we know that this is taking place over 5 days' time. And in the imagery, we see still, if you play it now, we still see the guys playing here, discussing, playing, but this is still the Twickenham studio. So what they are implying here is that the argument with George is still, the band is still in the Twickenham studios. So when George returns, is that still in the Twickenham studios or not? We are not sure. We don't get any information on that. We can only conclude it from the imagery over here. So when he returns, if it is still in the Twickenham studios, and later on we know they move to the Apple studios, moving the whole entire crew, the instruments, the amplifiers, all the gear, including the grand piano, the Blüthner, what we talked about earlier. Although the Apple building is only 10 miles away from the Twickenham studios, this probably would take, let's say, a day at least. Moving a complete studio environment from one studio to the next, building up everything, plugging in all the cords, all the signals into the desk, signal checking, sound checking, moving the grand piano. How much time does that take?
Well, if you move it, you're going to have to tune it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and they move it downstairs in the basement of the Apple building. So the entire operation of moving all that equipment, would it take a day, maybe two? That's another 2 days off the calendar.
Well, an argument could be made that they had equipment in both studios, so that they may not have had to move equipment. They just unplugged, and then when they went to Apple, all that equipment was there. That argument can be made.
Can be made, indeed. But if not, and we see in imagery the Blüthner piano, clearly visible, the Blüthner sign on the side of the piano. Did they have a Blüthner piano in Apple as well as in Twickenham studio? Not sure about that. It's like I say, it's a grand piano and a very expensive instrument. So if they had to move it, okay, that would at least take a day. If not, then your argument stands. Then they only have to move their guitars and the drum kit of Ringo, and at least that could have been done, let's say, between coffee and lunch. I'm not sure,
right.
But that could have been done. Yes.
Okay. So we have Billy reading this newspaper.
Yeah, they are goofing about in this scene. This is a little montage of them. This leads up to the crisis in the band, because we know George is leaving. Paul is stressed out, John is stressed out, and now George quits.
That's interesting. It says George quits, right? And here's the thing, Paul. Where's the date?
Yeah, there's no date. All all the other days of the calendar have a date, and here here we don't have a date, but we have in printed font George quits. So again, here there's manipulating imagery that doesn't make any sense in
All right, so just for the record, I mean, they're not showing it here, which is very, very interesting. As I mentioned earlier, folks, George had the argument with Billy on Monday, January 6th. Tensions mounted. It didn't get any better. And then around lunchtime, this is the official story now. This is not Mike and Paul making up a story. George walked out on January 10th. He was out from the 10th through the 15th, and he returned on the 16th. So this image here, this shot where George quits with no date, this is very, very odd.
It doesn't fit the rest of the shots of the calendar.
No, because the rest of the calendar was very detailed. Here are the dates. We're Xing them off, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So this shot is already fabricated. We can clearly conclude that. So
okay, let me.
It leads up to the here the shot. George in his Mercedes 600.
Well, and the other thing, Paul, I mentioned when we spoke last week is this shot is not unseen. I've seen this so many times.
It's a stock footage of him arriving at the studio. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's been played many times.
Yeah. What appears here is that the discussion leading up to the live shows is building up the stress. So the discussion, the live shows, the stress, George leaving, George returning, it's all building up stress.
To build the anticipation. Can they do this? Can they pull it off?
Yeah.
Right.
Can they pull it off in time?
Right,
exactly.
Right. Okay. And there's the live shows again. Canceled.
No, they're canceled. In the same... it doesn't even appear to be white out. It's just another shot of the letters of the word cancelled. It's not even on top of live shows. It's edited. It's not real. It's only its function is only to increase drama. It's not increasing reality of a calendar being rewritten.
Right. So it's dramatic effect.
It's only dramatic.
Okay. Now we have John and
Yoko dancing. I thought it was just a cute scene.
Well, the other thing is I've seen that footage before too. Maybe they're going to say, well, it wasn't that exact footage, but.
Well, it appears to be. This is in the Twickenham studio, and what you see in the background are these lamps, stage stuff. On the left, we see bongos and other stuff belonging to the studio. So it appears to be, and what I said earlier, the lights here are at a low angle, and that creates these harsh lit faces of the guys.
Yeah.
But it's, like I said, it's nice to see Yoko and John
having some fun.
Having some fun making out.
Again, and remember, he's a heroin addict, so. All right, so here's a scene, a little tender moment.
Yeah, and what we around this point, around this point, as we know that the tension has risen, George has left. What will happen next? The music of Let It Be starts, and that's a very the soothing sound of the first chords of Let It Be plays over this drama. So that's very clever editing to use that song over this scene.
Yeah, and they look very worn out here. So this is Michael Lindsay Hogg here, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
And again, he's talking directly to Billy, right?
Yeah, Billy is the man to talk to. John's not even not even in this shot.
No. And to the right is his wife. There's Linda. And then we have Ringo and George looking, rather bored.
Yeah. Another thing worth mentioning, maybe, I'm not sure. We know that from all these sessions, there are a lot of photographs taken by Linda. But in this promo, we see Linda in this shot, and in later on inside the desk room, we don't see her using or wearing her camera. So that's just a little observation I made. But
Okay. All right. So we have a little one-eyed symbolism there.
yeah, I noticed this. I thought, well, it's probably not intentionally, and maybe it is, but at least it looks very unforced, unprepared,
Yeah,
or
I don't know
whatever.
whether it's intentional or not, but
No.
yeah. Oh, there's more one-eyed symbolism. We got Yoko peeking out from behind her hair. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
It's a nice shot. I think it's a nice composition
Between
shot.
the two of them, they have two eyes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
There's Billy.
Now we get to the point where John is sort of starting to get tired under Billy's direction. If we play it forward, Billy is stressed out. This is an insert from the rooftop, and it's mixed together with these shots of the earlier years.
Yeah.
And now they sort of they lean on the sentiment from where they have come, these boys, what they all accomplished over all these years, all these famous concerts, and now they're still fighting to get this album being made. So it's all to enhance the drama.
Right. And this is Budokan. I recognize the background here in Japan,
Yeah.
1966.
Now we have this discussion. Michael Lindsay Hawk asks, in reference to George leaving, well, documentary seems to grind to a halt. And then we see here John saying, grinding to a halt? It's just getting started. And then Billy answers something to that effect as well.
Yeah, Billy was joking around. We're just getting started.
It's just getting started, yeah. But this is still, mind you, this is still in the Twickenham studio. So this is indeed a little reference to the date it took place. If George actually left for 6 days, then this shot was still in the Twickenham studios. But anyway, for that time point.
So this November.
Okay, we see here Billy playing. Okay, here this shot, freeze. You could read from John and George that they are under the pressure of Billy. Billy as the band leader, telling him what to do. Later on, we see Billy hovering over John at the piano. But the pose here of Billy is interesting because also here again he sort of takes the Jesus pose with the arms spread. Maybe I'm stretching for an image, but this is how it appears to be.
I think you're absolutely right. It's the Savior pose, and
it's the Savior pose, the Jesus Christ Savior pose.
Yeah, and look at the way we have George.
It's exactly composed. It's his arms and the boy's two faces are exactly symmetrical. It's a composed shot. This you couldn't have caught with a random camera. Just look over there. No, you're too late. It's already gone. So this is a composed shot.
It's also the same type of shot, Paul, that is depicted on the back of the Sgt. Pepper album, where Billy has his back.
Exactly.
And the other Beatles, we see their faces, but on the back of Pepper, Billy has his back turned to us. So to me, this is a very, very similar type of depiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a sort of an image, how do you say it? And it makes a visual reference to something the audience already know.
Yeah.
And so you have a very strong reference there.
Well, he's in charge.
And he's in charge, very much so. And in the next shot, we see him hovering over John at the here. We see John at the synthesizer piano. What is it?
The keyboard, yeah.
Yeah, the keyboard. Yeah. Yes, exactly. But we see again here the posture of Billy pointing out to John, no, the other chord, the other chord. No, it's not a B flat, it's an E minor, whatever. How he's telling John what to play is very stressing the power role he plays. He has.
Well, again, it's another piece of footage where it's showing us that Billy is the leader.
Yes.
He's directing.
Yes.
Right. And here we go again. He's pointing and he's directing.
Pointing.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And you see John is very much he's getting tired of this whole scenario. He had enough of it.
Right.
His face expression is very telling. Now we get up to the scene where the guys play together, and we where are we at 217? Yes. There's a small discussion going on, and
then they flash back to this.
And then they play, but during this flashback, we hear the soundtrack say, "When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me." So again, very powerful lyrics over a very stressing moment. Emphasizes the whole drama, and the soundtrack even more emphasizes this. And then we go to this scene.
Yep.
A little observation I made is the piano is without its top lid, but there's no microphone in there. So this is clearly Billy playing without any recording. It's just something I noticed.
Yeah, and this would be the microphone for the film crew, right?
For the cameras.
For the
film cameras, exactly.
Okay.
This is not your actual recording microphone.
Okay.
Again, here, old imagery. Now here, John and George playing.
Yeah, trying to tie it back. Old period, new period.
Yes, exactly. And this leads up to the scene where the four guys together are playing, and we get a comment from the booth, from the desk. This is all montage. Yes, this shot. John is leaning over his shoulder. The recording engineer, Glenn Johns, is asking on the soundtrack, "John, once more then?" And then we get to the shot from the sound desk. So he asks, "Once more then?" And then we hear John answer, but we see a completely different image. If you play it. This shot.
Yeah.
In the shot, we see John answering Glenn Johns. So John answers, "I mean, we'll never get a chance to do it again." And then we see on the word "again," we see this cut to another scene. We see clearly here.
Well, he's got that blue and yellow shirt on again.
Yes, John's blue and yellow. Billy is wearing orange at his guitar, and George is wearing red. And then we cut to the next scene. This scene is indeed continuous. And then the next scene, we hear,
that's not.
Billy is wearing blue, John is wearing white, Yoko is in the picture, and everybody is doing something completely different.
So this goes back to what you were saying before, Paul, that it's not contiguous, and it was done to kind of copy and paste and put it together so that it would create the trailer and a story and something people would be interested in. But
it doesn't. At least it is not continuous editing from scenes from or shots from the same scene. It's from different scenes, from different sessions, different days. I assume that the guys wear different clothes every day. So this is clearly from another scene.
Yeah.
If not. I wouldn't go as far as to say that this is fabricated, but it's from a different
Right.
session.
Right. Well, I hope they change their clothes every day.
I would think so.
Here's Billy directing again, right?
Billy directing again with his right hand. I wouldn't know if a director always uses his strong or his weak hand, but
I would assume it's your strong hand.
yeah, they are now having fun, goofing a little bit. Oh, this shot is the guys sitting at the desk, and what I noticed is that in all shots of the guys hanging at the desk and playing, grooving to the playback or whatever, smoking, whatever. The sound engineer is not at the desk. So if they would listen to playback, the sound engineer would be at his desk, would control the playback.
Yeah, he would be at the board.
You at the board, exactly. He would mix in a little bit more drums, a little less guitar, whatever.
Now, the other thing that's a problem with this scene, Paul, and I'm not saying it was, created this way. I'm just saying maybe this is exactly how it looked. We see the coffee cup right here?
Exactly.
Okay, now, if you're a sound engineer and you're running this control room, you would never have a coffee cup or any kind of cup that could possibly have liquid in it sitting on your board. Because if that tips over, you're going to have a big problem.
Yes.
An electrical problem.
And also, not in this shot, but in some other shots, we see that the guys the ashtrays are on top of the board. So the guys are smoking and drinking above or on top of the board. It doesn't make any sense. This is all montage. Okay, this is
my favorite scene here.
Yeah, this is a shot you already called out, the entering of Billy in the recording room. It could be that it has taken place like here shown, but it very much looks like it's not. It's composed of Billy maybe in another room entering, whatever, but it's shown here. I guess they only filmed Mal leaving the studio.
Here's Mal here.
Yeah. And the shot of Billy very much seems put in afterwards on a different image layer, edited in post.
It's how it looks to me. I'm looking at the outline of Billy Preston, and it just looks like it's layered or superimposed onto this background.
Exactly.
That's how it looks to me.
And later on, when we see Billy playing guitar, shot together with the famous. We come to that in a bit. We see him playing then with Billy together. It also seems fake. This is still a montage.
Okay, so I guess we're getting to the rooftop scene here now.
Now, leading up to the rooftop scenes, but it is intercut with some scenes from the studio as well. So we see here the guys playing. Okay. Stop, please. We see here George playing his Fender Telecaster. Very clearly a Telecaster with a brown body and a white picking plate and a light brown strap. This is typically George's guitar. Then, if we move forward.
Oh, there are the meters again. We talked about this, where this is an insert, possibly.
This is possibly an insert. We know that the board has 4 VU meters. Okay, we see them actually over here in the next shot on the board. These meters are side to side on top of the board. Here, these this gray. There's maybe another shot where you can see it from the guy's point of view, but anyway. And now in a moment we get. This is some street shots. This one. Okay. I thought, like the shot earlier from Billy Preston, that this is put in afterwards on a different image layer. Here again, like you already pointed out, Mike, the contour of his body, his head, his hair, it seems strange. It doesn't seem to fit inside the scene.
Yeah.
What I notice is that the lighting, it could be, but it's sort of seems off. I'm not sure how to call it, but the more important thing is what you said, Mike. Billy is playing George's guitar, and what we see is that he's playing. He's having the guitar on the same strap as George, so the strap is way too short for him to play his guitar as a lefty.
There's a bigger problem. This is a right-handed guitar, right? So this is what George was playing earlier. So
Yes.
for Billy to be playing this guitar, he would have had to reverse the string order.
Yes.
Right? So when George plays right-handed, the low E string is right here, and the high E, the first string, is down here. So how Billy could be playing standard chords, and this looks to me to be, he's probably playing like it looks to me like he's playing a B flat type of chord here. And the problem that we have, folks, is that in order for Billy to play this properly, the guitar would have had to have been restrung and to reverse the order of the string. So remember, when George is playing it, because it's a right-handed guitar, here is the low E, the bass string, and here is the high E, which is the treble side of the strings across the fretboard. And not only would they have to reverse the string order, but the nut, which has slots in it, would have to be reslotted, because you cannot get a low E bass string in a high E slot. Okay? So this whole thing is just off. So this
makes no sense.
It makes no sense. This is, if this happened, it's completely staged, and he can't possibly, when I say he, Billy can't possibly be playing anything that makes any sense. The strings are in reverse order. So this is a very, very peculiar shot. And whoever put this together didn't understand this. That's how I look at this, Paul. They didn't realize that when they did this, that somebody who plays guitar would pick up on this right away.
But for him to have the guitar restrung, it takes at least a couple of minutes, whatever. If you have a professional guitar guy, Mal Evans would probably do that in a bit. But still, why would you restring a guitar when there's maybe laying around 5, 6 other guitars? So from that standpoint, this is totally nonsense. It's nonsense.
It is nonsense.
In whatever way.
And even if they did restring the guitar, Paul, they would have to do something with the nut. They would have to pop the old nut out, put a lefty nut in, or somebody would have to, take their filing tools. Because I do this, folks. I mean, I do guitar repair, so I know what I'm talking about here. Something would have to be done with the nut. So, like you said, this whole thing does not make any sense. Here we have this is the low E string right here. We could see that this string is larger. It's thicker, okay, right here. We don't see it up here. That's because that's the lighter string. That's the high E. So this guitar, based upon what I'm looking at right here, Paul, this is a better view right here.
That's a good view, yeah.
You could see, here's the E, here's the A, here's the D.
Yeah.
These are the bass strings. The guitar was not restrung. It was not.
No, it's visibly a lefty, a righty guitar for a right-handed person. Yeah. Classically strung, as we know it, for a normal, but for a right-handed player.
Right. Yeah. All right, so I'll move forward again. Sorry about that.
like I said, the shots here in the streets are what I think untouched in terms of artificial image enhancement.
Yeah, they look like this. All the scenes we've seen before.
Yeah, relatively normal. Still goofing around. This shot, I thought, well, maybe, I'm not sure. Ringo, he mimes the movement of a film camera, but in fact, he's telling us, look, guys, we are being filmed. It's a show. It's all performance. It's all an act.
Yeah, the Beatles show.
The Beatles
just like
show.
They had on the Clapboard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the Clapboard said.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's his meaning at that time of this shot, but as the things are now before us, they could have easily been interpreted like this.
Okay.
This is all montage. The guy's having fun.
Like John's position here.
Yeah. It's very strange. And by the way, Yoko is probably looking at some coupons or the latest dinner reservation. I'm not sure what she's
maybe
doing.
she's
reading
flipping coupons to go shopping or something.
Anyway, it's just a little joke.
Experience the three-part event. Experience it.
Yeah, it's an event. It's how it's presented as an event, as a how do you say it? A sideshow, as a carnival.
This one here, you and I both picked up on Linda's face. Looks like.
Yeah, it's very much enhanced. In terms of the digitally enhancement of these faces and this contrast regain.
Let me go back and I'll start that again. Let me see here. Okay, there you go.
So we see Linda here, and what I think is it's very enhanced in terms of the image, the contrast gain, and the image enhancement. It looks very much off. Even for an untrained eye, you could see, well, why is Linda's face so strangely clear lit?
Yeah. I noticed it right
And
away,
again,
Paul, when I first watched it without you saying anything. I said, boy, she looks like her face has been enhanced.
And another thing is what I talked about earlier. We know that she took a lot of photographs during these sessions, but never, at least in the promo, did we see her wearing or using a camera. Now, you could argue, okay, she only took some photos one day during the whole session. That could well be. Another thing is, if that's the case, you would probably miss out on interesting moments. Normally, when you are photographing an event, you will have your camera all the time with you. Only if you go to lunch, then you maybe take it off for a few moments, but every other moment you have your camera with you.
We'll have to see what he does. We'll have to see what he does with the documentary, how much he shows of Linda and whether she has the camera. It's tough to do with like a 3.5 minute,
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. We cannot make a judgment based on this.
But your point is well made. I mean, we should see her with a camera, I would think.
Yeah.
I think. Okay, let's.
Because the other photographer, Ethan A. Russell, he is in some shots, not visibly, but he is there, and from him also are very many photos known that he took during the session. So every time we see him in a frame, he's wearing a camera, or better yet, he's pointing the camera to the guys. He's having the camera to his face, to his eye. So that's in contrast to Linda, who's never wearing her camera.
Yeah.
Here. This is all a montage. Ringo is lining up the frame. Yeah, this scene here. Interesting that George and John hug each other while leaving the studio. It's just, I thought, well, interesting that the camera picks up on this, that they filmed the guys leaving the studio.
It almost seems contrived to me,
Exactly.
you know?
But like I said, it's we cannot make judgment more than what we do now here based
Right.
on the footage. Well, now we're getting up to the this is sort of the end of the studio footage. Now we get the last shots, which go to takes us to the rooftop.
And there we have it, folks. Set back. Or others had said, hey, the shepherd's crook.
Yeah, the shepherd's
Right.
crook.
So
Yeah. Many comments online already were made on this at the Steven Weber. Sorry, I mispronounced his name.
Oh, Steve Fauber?
I see Steve Fauber.
Yeah. I have a lot of astute subscribers. It's amazing what people pick up on.
Yeah.
It's great.
Now we get to the rooftop scenes, and one thing that I noticed, what's interesting, is the rooftop fairly clearly shows that it's been boarded with very well, I think it's something like 1,000 square foot of wooden planks.
Planks right here. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And there are still photos from the location scouting made by the Ethan A. Russell photographer who made these shots, where we can see the guys scouting the rooftop for the location to have the concert. And what you can clearly see that those shots show the roof of the section where it is not being planked. And here it is very clear that it's all new wood placed precisely for the concert. And this set me to the thought of the timing and the planning of this rooftop. If you have 1,000 square feet of wood that you want to have installed on top of your standard roof felt, you have to get it over there. First, you have to think about the idea. We're going to do the show on the top of the building. So you have your image, your ID forming. You have your concept. Then you have to start planning. You have to buy the wood. You have to bring it over there. You have to transport it on top of the building. So you have to have a crane. You cannot, probably are planks of at least 3 feet long. You cannot transport them through the stairwells upstairs. So you have to bring it in from the street level with a crane. So you have to use a crane. You have to rent a crane, a crew, a crew of carpenters to fit it all on the roof. Then you have to plan the day of the concert with all your instruments moving on top. So from the basement of the building on top of on the roof, you have to organize all your camera crew. They have separate lightings. You see here in this shot that they have these floodlights. They used to because it's a gray day with a cloudy overcast day. So the lighting is not optimal. They use extra lights to give the camera crew an sufficient lighting scheme to work with. Security, the police is probably in on it. All these things take very longer, I think, than just one person shouting it from. I know, I have an idea. Let's play on the top of the building, and then 3 minutes later, you start playing. It doesn't work like that.
No, it couldn't be spontaneous, because
No,
I would think, Paul, at the very least, they would have to have a building engineer come in to make sure that the roof can sustain what you're bringing up there, the equipment, the people, and so on. There's a lot of weight, because you don't want to get up there, start playing, and you fall through the roof and you wind up, downstairs. So I agree with you that these planks here, and I don't know if we're going to see it in this footage, but you did have a still that you sent over, and folks can go take a look at the rooftop scene, by doing a search, and you can see that these planks do not go all the way across, that they are there where they are going to perform, where they're going to play.
Exactly. Only let's say the bandstand area is planked. The other area of the building, let's say behind the railings behind behind Ringo, that part of the building is not being planked, and the still images by Ethan A. Russell clearly show that is the standard roof felt.
Well, you can see it up here, right?
Yeah, it looks like that exactly.
Right up here.
But like what you said also is the weight distribution over the roof. A roof is not built for these types of load forces. So you have to disperse these loads over the entire area of the roof, and there is where these planks come into play. And it's very well thought of. It's probably, like you said, it's maybe they had an engineer who looked at it, who could tell the type of planks they have to use to make sure that this. Plus, also we have a sort of a improv railing where the cameramen are standing. You don't want people falling over. Like I say, we had the entire camera crew, and what I read about is that they have six cameras filming this concert, and this shot indeed from the other side of the street was indeed an actual camera. We discussed it before, and we doubt, at least I doubted it, if that was a real camera or if it was a still image that they reworked into a moving scene, but it's in the original documentary as well. So we have a camera across the street. This also asks for coordination. People stage hands with maybe with walkie-talkies. You have to plan this way up in advance.
Okay, so the net of it is, and I agree with you, that this wasn't spontaneous. They weren't downstairs 15 minutes prior and said, hey, let's move all this stuff up to the rooftop and let's put on a little performance, right? So, and of course, there's nothing wrong with doing the performance on the rooftop. I think it's great, but the story that it was just this spontaneous decision and they went upstairs and they did it, I agree with you that no, this had to be planned out because, like I said, if you don't have the weight distributed correctly, then you could wind up having a problem.
And another interesting thing is, I'm not sure at what moment in time it is. I have it at 3:40. If you can you go back a few moments in this rooftop scene, John?
I mean, take a look at how old these buildings are, Paul.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. This one. You see the guy standing in front of John, sitting on his knees,
right,
with the red hair. He's holding up a sheet of paper with a score.
We're talking about this guy here, and he's definitely holding up a clipboard.
He's holding up a clipboard with I think with a score. Okay, because John is singing, so he doesn't have to read the score. He knows it by heart.
Well, maybe it's lyrics. Billy, maybe it's lyrics for Billy to read off of.
Maybe, but like I say, it's only on this song. It's not on all the other songs. It's only here that this guy is holding up the music sheet or the score or the lyrics, whatever.
So this is a shot from across the street, obviously.
This is from across the street, and this guy in the brown trench coat, he is filming this camera. So what we see here, the two cameramen are filming each other. Interesting.
And we could see, here's the roof, the building next door, right? And we could see here.
That's normal.
And I don't think this is planks here. This just looks, I don't see planks here, but this looks like this up here.
Some roofs have concrete tops, but usually you have this typical roof felt. And it's a bit, how do you call it in English? A bitumen-based roof felt for making it watertight.
Yeah.
And if you normally workmen who repair or who make this, they are used to it. They know how to walk, where to put your feet, not to damage this roof felt. If you damage it, you get a leakage, and then you can start all over again.
Yeah.
But if you have 20 people, or I don't know, at least 20 people standing on the roof, it will get damaged. You don't want to have that. So the planking on the roof is very useful, but it takes a planning that is not considered in the earlier calendar story.
Yeah, and like you said, Paul, they put a rail up here,
Yeah, they put a rail up.
and it's highly unlikely that they took these planks and brought them up through the stairwells and brought them up and then started laying them down. They possibly had to bring in a crane.
Yeah, so I had to bring in a crane. So a crane rental is all it all asks for planning days in advance, and so like you say, it's not spontaneously done. And what is not clear in these shots is that halfway or somewhere around the end of the concert, these policemen enter the building, and there's an interesting footage in the. If you watch the entire concert footage, you see the English bobbies entering the building, but you see it filmed from both sides of the door at the same time. So this clearly shows me that police were in on it. They knew they were being filmed, or even better, they were in on it and they acted out the entire scene.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you that this was completely scripted, including the whole thing with the police. I know the scene you're talking about. So,
yeah,
like everything else, it's theater. It's theatrics.
It's a
show.
Yeah. Because the whole premise of playing on a rooftop, for who are they playing? The guys in the streets barely heard anything. I mean, the amplifying of the sound, I don't know what speakers they use, but it's only monitor speakers, what I think. It's what they had up there.
But the problem is that this becomes like, this is a big echo chamber.
That's true.
Right? So this is a big echo chamber down here. So they're playing and the sound is reverberating off the buildings, off the windows, and it just sounds like a big mess.
Right. It's like a bad concert hall with a bad acoustic.
Yeah. Well, this was a very interesting discussion, Paul. It's amazing too. It's been 2 hours for us to go through a 3.5 minute clip. So just taking a look through it. And again, folks, we're just watching and making some observations and sharing some insights. And, some folks are going to agree and others may not agree, but that's okay. We're just chit-chatting and taking a look at possibilities. But there are definite anomalies in that trailer, Paul, that that you've called out that do call into question. And as I have said, I do believe that Peter Jackson has been given the job by Billy to buff up this period of the Beatle history, to make it less negative, and to infuse it with a more positive tone, a more positive storyline. Even if they
use existing images. So let's say the discussion about Peter Jackson using real CGI, real computer-generated images from nothing. I don't think that's the case. At least for total images, maybe for the details that we already discussed, superimposed images, eyes that moved across, things like that. But if they indeed used the existing images, it still tells a story which is made up from edits over a soundtrack and a narrative that's being emphasized by juxtaposition of certain type of images, inserts of the calendar, the timeline. So the let's say the induced drama. It's a real clever piece of editing and image processing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what this looks like, the final product.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that says don't bother watching it because I don't want to feed the beast. But there is
Yeah.
there is another part of me that says I want to see exactly what he's done, because
What he does.
I keep going back to, if this was such great footage, why was it not in the original film? So I think that I believe there's a lot of liberties that were taken, and I think the technology, and you might disagree with me, is probably more prevalent than we might think in order to enhance the story. I do believe that. And because all the happy smiling faces that he's showing us in these trailers, it's a very sharp contrast to what we all know the original film was about. I mean, I watched the original film a number of times. I have a copy of it on DVD. It's well documented that it was a very tense and down time for the Beatles as a band. So, for him to pump up the tires and make it look like it was just one big old jolly time, I don't know.
And also what what you said earlier about what we know, how George later looked back on this period of time, and also what even recently how Ringo is sort of distancing himself from the film that Michael Lindsay Hogg made. And from George, you already mentioned, we know how he thought about this period in time. So these opinions of the guys from the band, how they looked back on this period of time, is completely different from what Peter Jackson is telling us.
Right.
And then you have to ask yourself, okay, what is true and what is manipulated and what is contrived and what is clever edited and what is indeed CGI. Certain things we could see, we picked up on both, but certain things maybe we missed.
Right.
Peter Jackson is a clever guy and he's very clever.
And he has state-of-the-art technology.
The technology he has, he can, the stuff he made for these Lord of the Rings films is amazing. So I believe that he can do anything he wants with imagery, and what he shows us here is already very clever, and maybe we missed half of it, but at least we picked up on some interesting points.
Yeah. So I for everybody who's watching this and is ultimately going to take a look at the documentary when it comes out later this month, watch it with a discerning eye. That's all I would say. And as you watch it, keep in mind the original story, the original narrative. Keep that in mind as you're watching it, and then mentally note the contrast in presentation. Whereas the Michael Lindsay Hogg version of Let It Be, going back to 1970 when it was released, again, was showing a band that was hitting its demise. It was a band that had a lot of tension, and that tension started way before Let It Be, and it extended way beyond Let It Be. And you have to keep that in mind. So don't get just caught up in all of the fantastical presentation that Peter's going to present, because I'm going to tell you, it's not going to be reality. I don't think so.
Right.
Anyway, Paul, this was excellent, and I'm so glad that you agreed to come on and talk about this. And so I think that we shall see, right? Later this month, we shall see how close to the mark you and I are.
Okay, like I say, I'm interested in how people will respond.